Hello, hello. This is episode 6 of the unnamed podcast. Notice, Fowler, I did not say poorly named because I respect my work a little bit more than you do. So, uh,
I take no responsibility for the name. That's all your creation.
you're damn right it's my creation. Just like this podcast, just like me doing 90% of the work and you just sitting there like a smug, stupid smurf with your fucking headphones and shitty $30 Amazon microphone. Alright?
Bro, you are the one who named the podcast, but otherwise editing takes you 10 minutes by your own admission. Let's not claim right now that this is your Michelangelo or something, okay?
Fuck you. I ain't got time for this. We have more important things to get to, people, because as of yesterday, well, Thursday, they announced the indictment of former President Donald J. Trump, uh, 45. And as of last night, they have unsealed the indictment papers, going over what exactly went down. And I'm just going to be real with y'all. Uh, Shit does not look good for Donny Boy, like, at all. In fact,
As it turns out, there are consequences to picking the dumbest man in America to be your leader
yeah, it's
that will affect
unfortunate.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the stupidest political scandal to ever happen. Uh in terms of the people involved in the scandal. You know, the consequences are insurmountable and absolutely a threat to national security, but the people involved all seem to have an IQ of maybe under 45. So, we're going to go over the indictment. This is really what this episode's going to be about, nothing else, just a one topic thing. I have poured over the indictment in detail. Fowler has not, so he's got to, do his homework for the podcast that we do together next time. Uh,
I've done my homework, but you've definitely done more of the work than I
yeah,
have. I've read a couple
yeah, I
articles.
know. Look at me, editing the podcast, having all the equipment, and doing the homework. Jeez. Uh, anyway, listen, I'll stop coming at you. I feel like I come at you a lot during this podcast, but you're so easy. So
Everyone wants to take out the king. I understand.
yeah, until someone succeeds. Haha. So, looking at the papers. Fowler, what do you want to go over first? Do you want to talk about the details of the indictment, or do you want to talk about the potential consequences?
Let's do the details. We'll break it up into sections, right? There's showing classified information, there's obstruction of justice, and then there's the conspiracy charge, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have the actual paper open on my computer right now, so I'm looking at it. I don't want to read the whole thing. It's like 40 something pages.
We can just
Um,
summarize.
yeah, so to make a long story short, guys, last year, or not last year, when Trump left office, he took with him a slew of classified documents pertaining to information regarding national security, nuclear capabilities, communications with foreign leaders and foreign nations, the military capabilities of not only the United States but also other countries, our allies, potential plans of attack against other countries in the case of uh, some sort of military conflict, information on current military operations in countries, information on other countries' current military operations in other countries. Um, and I think I said a second ago, nuclear secrets, like high, like nuclear secrets, like big shit. So he took this when he left office, and he stored them in varying places around his Mar-a-Lago estate. There are pictures of documents stashed in the bathroom, in a storage area in the basement.
It's
In
important to remember as well with Mar-a-Lago that Mar-a-Lago is like not like by any means a secure location, and I don't just mean because it's not a government facility, but like Mar-a-Lago has lots of people from different countries that go there because it's a resort, and we know that people have um that like foreign powers have like just kind of chilled at Mar-a-Lago because they know Trump is there. So it's like it's a pretty serious it's a very difficult place
Yeah,
to um guard, I guess.
yeah. It's got the security of like a Denny's. So, you know, it's like if I took classified documents and was like, I'm going to go to 7-Eleven and just leave them. Uh, just picking up my 7-Eleven hot dog, which I've never had. They look disgusting. But picking up my 7-Eleven hot dog, and I tell the cashier, like, do you mind holding this for me while I go take a shit because I ate the 7-Eleven hot dog? And then I just walked out without taking them. That's basically what happened. Uh, app comparison, I think. Uh, anyway, so we know that he took these documents, right? And he, over the course of, I think, a year and a half, um, deliberately lied about the location of the documents to investigators. I believe at one point he gave over initially like 300 documents and kept like 200. And then when the FBI came back again to ask, he gave them like 68 and was like, there's no. And then when they actually raided his home, you remember last year, the Mar-a-Lago raid that happened, they found the remaining 160 something documents. I know at one point he gave a fake certification to the FBI confirming that he had handed over all the documents when in fact he had not. And we know that at several points he actually showed classified information to people without security clearance, staffers and writers.
Also, to be clear about the hiding, we know like the FBI explicitly asked him to um they explicitly asked him to give them the docs, and not only did he not give them the docs, but he like had the documents moved to another location. So it's pretty
Yeah.
damning.
At
Like its
one,
intent as well as
yes.
the act itself.
Not only intent hiding them from the FBI, but in fact, Donald Trump and his co-conspirator, who is a retired, I believe, Navy veteran named. Let me find the guy's name. I want to make sure Waltine Nauta, um, Nauta. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. That Trump and Waltine Nauta um, conspired to actually hide the documents, not just from the FBI, but from Trump's own attorney, who was attempting to abide by the FBI subpoena and return the documents. So not only hiding them from the FBI, but hiding them from his own attorney, who was attempting to comply with a subpoena. Um, so it's bad. We have audio recordings, and from what I heard, video recordings as well. Um, of Trump basically saying, "Let me read to you. Let me go find the exchange and read it." Because it's a pretty damning exchange. There's also pictures. Oh yes. I'm not gonna do the Trump voice because I'm congested and I can't. But uh, so this exchange I'm about to read took place between Trump, a writer, and a staffer. I believe um the writer was interviewing Trump for a book that he was writing, and so because the writer was interviewing Trump, Trump consented to being let me see if it's audio or video. Trump consented to being recorded. I audio at the very least. I don't know if it's video as well. It's very common for writers, when they're interviewing people for a book to record the conversations so that they can go back and listen later on, in case they missed any details or in case they need to, remember what was said during the conversation. So this just was a voluntary recording. This was not like a wiretap or a staffer secretly pulling out his phone and recording the conversation without knowledge. This was Trump consented to being recorded. Um, and this was the exchange that he had with the writer and the staffer. So I'm just going to read it. Trump. Well, with the senior military official. So basically, he said somebody's name, but they blurted out for confidentiality. Well, with the senior military official, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack country A. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look, this was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. Writer. Wow. Trump. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. Pages long. Look. Staffer. Uh-huh. Trump. Wait a minute. Let me see here. Staffer. Laughter. Yeah. Trump. I just found. Isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know. Staffer. Mm-hmm. Except it is like, and this is Trump speaking, except it is like highly confidential. Staffer. Yeah. Laughter. Trump. Secret. This is secret information. Look at this. You attack and I think they skip later on to the conversation. Trump. By the way, isn't that incredible? Staffer. Yeah. Trump. I was just thinking because we were talking about it, and he said he wanted to attack country A. And what? Staffer. You did. Trump. This was done by the military and given to me. I think we can probably, right? Staffer. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try and, Trump. Declassify it. Staffer. Figure out, yeah. Trump. See, as president, I could have declassified it. Staffer. Yeah, laughter. Trump. Now I can't, but this is still a secret. Staffer. Yeah, laughter. Now we have a problem. Trump. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, the problem with a lot of these messages is it doesn't just show that he broke the law, it shows that he knew he broke the law. Like, he knew he couldn't declassify the documents, he knew he shouldn't be handing the documents to people. Moving a bunch of the files away when the FBI asks shows like an intent to obstruct justice and to subvert the will of the FBI. So I think
Yes.
he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But to
Uh,
be fair to the situation, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. Like, the indictment he's going to get in Georgia for the election tampering also is sort of a very complicated situation the because it also reveals intent there as well. So
yes.
he's sort of been in a position now a couple times where we know pretty definitively that he knew he was doing, bad shit, and he just didn't care.
Yes. And Pence, Hillary Clinton, and Biden have all had instances of deleting or having documentation that they probably shouldn't have. But from what I understand, the difference between that situation and this is the intent. Um, it's perfectly in a perfect world, it is completely possible that you know when Trump was leaving office, he could have had documentation taken and put at Mar-a-Lago without his knowledge. A staffer could have accidentally misplaced. Now, let me see. You don't misplace like 300 documents, but in the case of like Biden, I think it was only like one or two documents that he like left in his car or like at his house. It's completely reasonable and completely possible that like a staffer could put documents and just forget that they're there and then move them. That's happened before, and I think with Hillary Clinton, like deleting emails, she was kind of in the clear because they found that it was not intentional. She's like a boomer old woman with two phones, like, um, shit happens. But from what I understand, the intent and the obstruction of justice, the showing shit to people who don't have clearance, all of that makes the shit that Pence, Biden, and Clinton did like pale in comparison.
I
Um,
was looking at polling, and I think it's like 67% of Republicans don't thought him being indicted was like wrong, and they don't support it. So, it's not impossible that he does get indicted and then he wins the presidential primary anyway on the
yeah.
Republican side.
Another thing I was gonna say, and Fowler, I don't think I told you this yesterday when we talked about it briefly. Um, Based on the exchange, we can put two and two together. So, country A at the beginning of this transcript that he mentions is most definitely Iran. Because if you remember, a couple years ago, Mark Milley went on record saying that he had to prevent Trump from attacking Iran.
Hmm. I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was after he left the presidency. Mark Milley publicly said that he had to prevent Trump from launching attacks um, on Iran. And so, what I imagine this exchange was with the writer was Trump trying to prove to the writer that he has classified information that could exonerate him. You know, not like legally, but exonerate him, publicly. Um, that's what I think, and what I've heard people say is that country A is Iran, um, and that he was rebuking Mark Milley's statement that he had to be prevented from launching an attack on Iran. Uh, and he thought the smart thing to do was to show classified documents to a writer, because his IQ is just so high. Uh,
Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable how many mistakes he's made. I think I don't know. It's kind of interesting because the criminality of it is like it's pathological. He just can't help himself. You know what I mean? And the crazy thing is how much he's gotten away with before this. Like he basically got away with Jan 6. He basically got away with um, like Charlottesville. Like he's just done a lot of insane criminal shit and gotten away with it. And
yeah,
this is sort of the first time we're really seeing him like be in a position where it looks like he might actually face consequences for his actions.
yeah. I think it's kind of like twofold. I think beforehand, considering that that history is being made, in terms of this, like we've never had a former president be indicted. I mean, we've never had a president be impeached twice, and we've never had a president be indicted twice. Um, the financial stuff that he was busted for in New York City pales in comparison, I think, to this, because this, number one, is a federal charge, and number two, um, I mean, I'll scroll to the top of this document, and I'm gonna go over all of the agencies that he had top secret documentation from. The Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, the Department of Defense, the DoD, the National Security Agency, the NSA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Never did not know we even had that. To be real with you, half of these I did not know existed. Uh, just to clarify, uh, the National Reconnaissance Office, the Department of Energy, the Department of State and Bureau of Intelligence and Research. Um, those are the agencies from which he had classified information. And so I think the big thing compared to anything else he's gotten busted for, even with like Charlottesville and stuff like that, is like, even if he were to win the presidency or become the GOP primary, the administrative state will never work with him because he's a fucking security risk. You know, we still don't know why he kept the documents to begin with. There could be more information that comes out in subsequent investigations that show that he was actually planning on giving the documentation over to foreign adversaries. Uh, Most likely the Saudis.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that front.
So it's kind of just like, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of just having the documents and withholding them and showing them to people. Like, we still don't know what his actual intent was with the documents, and it very well could be uh, that he had documentation copied and sent to foreign adversaries, which I don't know how, if you then win the presidency, you're supposed to work with the DoD.
I mean, he's unique in a lot of ways. Like he's the only president we've ever had who has no military or government experience. Like he really is just an anomaly in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, but
And
so
I think the system, the institutions that are supposed to protect our democracy, they I think they were unprepared the first time. That's why he got away with so much. Is like
Yeah,
we've never
yeah,
really had a president quite like him, and it
exactly.
kind of seems like finally the Justice Department is and the federal government has like dealt with him enough that they kind of are starting to develop a playbook on how to
Yeah,
like handle him.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say a second ago. Is that I think the reason he's gotten away with so much shit is because even back in like 2016 with the Russian collusion shit, like there's just never been, which we now know was a thing. Like we know that he had contact with Russia all the way back prior to even becoming president. There is just no precedent for this because no American president has been, has had contacts with foreign adversaries, um, and done the shit that he's done, and been anti-democratic in the way that he is. So I think but I think you're right that now the federal government is building a playbook, and I think with him essentially being a security risk, we know how the military doesn't fuck around. Like I don't know. Like I can't see how, even if he wins the presidency, like how he'll work with the administrative state. Especially since this is going to splinter the GOP. We already have GOP members calling for violence and calling for civil war. Um, there have been tweets already being made by GOP congresspeople, basically stating that they want armed paramilitary to start a civil war.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'll ultimately be enough. Like I think like the problem is that like maybe getting rid of Trump in such a way would have been effective at an earlier point in history. But the problem with the fascism is it's not just him. It's not like a situation like with the Southern demagogues where like there's one demagogue and that by defeating them politically you remove the threat of authoritarianism. Like the Trumpism is an ideology, the fascism is an ideology, and it permeates the Republican Party. So
Yeah,
I think that even his elimination may not actually slow things down enough to really effectively change things.
yeah. That's that's the thing that worries me. Um, cause um, the playbook for the GOP in the future, if they want to survive as a cohesive party, is going to be siphoning support from siphoning off support from Trump supporters by promising that they'll, if he does get indicted and imprisoned, by promising that they'll pardon him. Um, so it seems like even GOPers who are maybe moderate, like Lindsey Graham, for example, who, in his politics is rather moderate, but his entire existence now hinges on his relationship with Donald Trump. And so he's fucked himself, in a lot of ways. Because he attached himself to a fucking, like, the dumbest man ever.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how often that occurs. Like it's the same thing with the Bush administration where like it's pretty clear that George W. Bush was a fucking maniac and an idiot, but in the short term like backing him made sense in the short term,
Yeah.
whereas like in the long term if they really thought about it, being tied to him is an insane proposition. But like I don't know, I guess it's worth it. It's worth it for the time being almost.
Yeah. Well, and I think the issue with Trump is like, like you said, backing Bush seemed smart in the moment. And, Bush has sort of been rehabilitated. And even if like, he wasn't rehabilitated by Trump, like he is quietly sitting in his house in Texas not saying shit. Whereas with Trump, it's like even upon leaving office, he's just a menace. You know,
Yeah.
like it's an error in calculation. I think with someone like Trump, like he's too unhinged to be attached to. You know.
I think it also shows like we very easily could have lost our democracy if he had been more competent with Jan Sex, for example, or the way that he was trying to subvert democracy. And I think it kind of it demonstrates how vulnerable the democracy in our country was by how incompetent he was, but how far he got. But I
Yeah.
do think from now on, like the fascists, now that fascism like is in the vernacular of the public, like there are like late night show hosts like Stephen Colbert or like people on MSN like talking heads who are have explicitly named it as fascism. I think it'll just be extraordinarily difficult for them to get away with it now in a way that wasn't the case. But of course, we still have to maintain vigilance.
Yeah. We have to maintain vigilance and then also understand that the media shapes so many people's perceptions. And that a lot of people are okay with fascism. I think that's the really unsettling thing. I mean, I don't talk politics with strangers, but I do like to hear what people say, and I listen to what people say. And, for all my people watching, who think of themselves as law abiding, pro democracy citizens, a lot of people are just okay with fascism. They just, and it's not really even a racial thing. A lot of people just don't have the knowledge to understand political processes. They don't really know how democracy works. They don't really care. Uh, and they don't really care if they live under a dictatorship or not.
Yeah, people are their primary motivation is prosperity, and democracy is secondary to that. And I think you see many times in history people who are willing to trade democracy for the promise of prosperity.
Yeah. Um. So that's just kind of the reality. There's no real like kumbaya. We all come together and love each other. There's only who controls the reins of power. That's it. Uh, who sits in
I
the
don't
seat of power.
I don't know if I fully agree with the Game of Thrones esque
Well, I mean,
analysis.
like, practically. Like, yeah, love and friendship is super great, and solidarity between citizens is important, especially in a democracy. You have to get the normies on board with your ideas, and you have to get people who are disenfranchised and moderate on board with your ideas. But in terms of, like, the politics, like, in terms of, like, the nitty gritty, like, you know, um, when you're dealing with fascists, especially, um, like you're not gonna, you're not gonna be able to, like, hug Hitler and be like, listen, bro, you know what I think you need? I think you need to watch, um, I think you need to watch, like, Roots, and then you'll feel like you can't do that.
Yeah, it's the dark reality of fascism is that history has sort of shown like anyone can really be a fascist. You don't have to be particularly evil or monstrous to be one. Most people under the right conditions will support fascism.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. Looking through these indictment papers a bit more. Yeah, I really like the picture of the documents in the shower with the chandelier. Having a chandelier in your bathroom is so tacky, bro.
I mean, it's Trump.
I know.
He's the master of tact or tackiness. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not the Republican Party shrugs, because the entirety of his administration, whenever he does something insane or stupid, the strategy of the right wing media has been to ignore it.
Or say it's
And
not
I
real.
Yeah, and I wonder if, like, now that he's not the president, there will be a tipping point. But I think probably what they'll do is they just won't say shit. They're not going to highlight it, but they're not going to denounce it either. And they're going to just sort of hope that the Democrats and the prosecutors just eliminate him, you know?
Yeah.
But I still don't think I think it's possible he wins the Republican primary in in spite of the indictments. I don't think that that's that insane a prospect. So hopefully I'm wrong about that.
I'm looking at this Walt Nauta guy. He was born in Guam. Interesting.
Who's Walt? Whatever.
So that's the other dude who's also going to jail most definitely forever. That's the co-conspirator with Trump. Trump's valet and personal aide, who basically like helped him do all of the shit that he did.
Excellent.
He was born in Guam, joined the Navy as a culinary chef.
It takes all kinds, I guess.
Yeah. God, imagine throwing your life away for Donald Trump. I could
I
never.
mean, sadly, he wouldn't be the first.
I know, but just
What was his name? Fucking Anthony Scaramucci missed the birth of his son to do stuff for the Trump administration.
somebody got to be cool as hell to be able to do that. Oh, I'm so fucking congested. Our air quality here is still ass, but you know, what can you do? Do you have anything else, Fowler, to add? This is a bombshell indictment. I mean, going forward, there are endless possibilities, a multiverse of things that could potentially happen. Do you actually think, Fowler, they're gonna like do the full like booked and bagged, put in prison, or do you think it's gonna be? I've heard people say that most likely he's gonna be under house arrest, and only get charged like 5 years. You know, like the minimum. I've heard people say that the judge that will preside over his case is going to be one that he appointed. Although I've heard information too that
Although there were judges that he appointed
yeah,
who also stopped the steal stuff.
yeah.
You
Well,
know what
and
I
I've also heard the judge that'll be presiding, she's in a temporary position and realistically could be removed from presiding over his case because uh her position was not.
I don't think you indict them unless you think that you can win. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well,
indicting is a big deal.
especially the DOJ. The DOJ doesn't go after cases that they think they'll lose.
Yeah, and it's such a high profile case. I would
Yeah,
be very surprised if they don't have all their ducks in a row, cuz I think like the pressure of taking on a president is pretty insane. So,
yeah.
I think he's probably very screwed.
Um, he's his he's seeing a jury in Florida. That's the other problem I think too that worries me is he's in the case is going to happen in Florida. You know, which is it's Florida.
Yeah, but I don't know if they can interfere if it's a DOJ
Well,
thing.
I'm
You know what I
saying
mean?
just the jury. I mean, how do you pick the jury? I mean, there's so many questions that I think are. that I just had. Like, how do you pick an impartial jury to something like that?
Yeah, I'm
Like,
not sure.
even if they were to get people from outside the United States, like, like his Donald Trump's reach is so broad, and the reach of America is so broad. Like, there are people in Europe, in like Czechoslovakia, who have fucking opinions on Trump. I feel like.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's gonna be like OJ. It's gonna be like a pretty insane gambit.
The glove fits.
Well, let's hope he doesn't get off like OJ did, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's that
I
possibility.
think he's boned though, not just because there are 34 counts in this one, but when he inevitably gets charged for the Georgia shit, that's gonna also be like a slam dunk case. Like he's left an enormous breadcrumbs trail of criminality, and
Yeah,
it's radioactive. And also, I think the other thing about Trump is it's a kingmaker thing. Like any prosecutor who has any political interests, like taking out the president is a great way of being a national figure. And I'm
well,
sure that there are many lawyers who are salivating at the opportunity to like Bob Woodward him. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Speaking of lawyers, Trump's two attorneys have quit. They quit yesterday. They turned in their resignation yesterday, and they uh the quote that was given that I read was they said that at this point it seems logical.
You're
Turned
not
did a
wrong.
360 and fucking dipped out of there. But I mean, I think you're right. Like, if you are somebody with political ambitions, taking down the president is a slam dunk. But I also think that has to be balanced with the knowledge that any judge or any official that touches this case um against Trump is going to have like an Autobot like guide their like live at their house, because they will get so many death threats, and they will be. I mean, the treatment of the poll workers in Georgia during the election is one thing, but like I can't imagine being a judge and touching this case and knowing that the rest of your life you're gonna have to sleep with a fucking hand grenade under your pillow. Uh, uh, so I think that's also something they'll take into consideration. Um, and it just comes down to personal personal strength and willingness, and not being fearful.
I don't know if Trump has lasting power enough to just
Well, it's
like
not
I like
him.
if he goes down.
It's not him. It's his supporters. It's the deranged paramilitary freaks with all the AR-15s that I'm more worried about. You
Hmm.
know, like I think that's the issue.
One of the problems, though, of making a lot of your power be the cult of personality, though, is I don't know how long it can survive without them. You know what I mean? Um, like Hitler and Stalin both had that same situation where while they were in power, their cult of personality was supreme. But the instant both of them left power, like it fell apart completely. And I think too much of Trump's brand relies on Trump himself because it's not like besides fascism, it's not really an ideology. So I don't know if I don't know if he can continue to galvanize support if he's not like constantly fanning the flames and tweeting and messaging. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to see. I mean, I so if you scroll to the very bottom of the indictment paper, very very bottom, last page. Oh shit. Let me see. Past the uh the different counts. Um. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, did they not put it? Oh yeah. Okay, it's here. Um, so it's a page that says, like, I do hereby certify that I have carefully considered the allegations of the indictment, the number of defendants, the number of probable witnesses, and the legal complexities of the indictment information, yada, yada, yada. you know, and then I'm aware the information supplied on the statement will be relied upon by the judges of this court in setting, interpreter, and then number 4, this case will take 21 days for the parties to try. Which means that they're expecting there to be a trial in like a month, if I'm reading that correctly. As opposed to the New York case, which will take at least another year to go to court. Yeah, the 21 to 60 days is checked off, and then the felony is checked off as well.
We are through historic times, certainly.
Yeah. You know, I mean, in any good faith society, once the president leaves office, he is a common man, and subject to the common law. Even in office, he's the common man. But most certainly, when he leaves office, he or she should be subjected to the same set of, uh, consequences and laws that everybody else is subjected to. But the sanctity of law is an illusion, and it is strictly political. The way that the law is wielded, the way that the law is interpreted, is political. There are people in jail for having marijuana on them that will probably serve more jail time and prison time than Donald Trump will serve. So just keep that in mind for those listening. Despite the fact that Donald Trump
Jail.
had
He'll go to rich person jail. He'll go to the same type of jail that like
he'll
Jordan Belfort went to.
he'll go like house arrest in his massive Mar-a-Lago estate.
Although I can't imagine a more painful punishment. Like Trump is so prideful and narcissistic and thin-skinned that like I really can't think of a worse fate than obscurity for him.
True. Take his phone away. No technology. You have to like be a normal human being and find hobbies.
I wonder if it'll take precedent, like this precedent will continue, because a lot of the Trump guys have said some pretty insane shit and done pretty insane shit. Like Steve Bannon said that he wanted to like behead Fauci and put his head on a spike, and he's not alone. So I kind of wonder, like, if they take out the president and they succeed in taking him out, is it just hunting season for all of the Trumpers and MAGA people?
I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I'm curious if this will go to the Supreme Court.
I don't think they have the balls to overturn it, because if they did, it would be the end of the Supreme Court, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, we will be following this with, as a wise man once say, we will follow your career with great interest. But this is definitely historic. Love it. Love living through history. Super cool. Anything you want to close out with, Fowler? Because we're at almost 45 minutes, so.
No, that's all good. I think we covered everything.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll put a link in the description if y'all want to go actually read the indictment, and check it out for yourselves. It's 50 pages, or 49 pages. And it's all there. The evidence is all there, and it's pretty damning evidence. So, we'll see. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next podcast.